Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe. Welcome back to the 2 Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined by Andrew, and we have learned about a little bit of his backstory in terms of how it is that he was able to scale a very great business in the health and fitness space, and then had a really interesting transition in life that took him to where he's at now. And so, Andrew, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little bit of a backstory in terms of where you got started in your entrepreneurial journey and where it's taken you today, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I started off a long time ago as a personal trainer. And, I've always been more in business than I ever was into coaching. I kind of just fell into that. But, I took a business online. I decided to take my personal training business online, and we're going back 7 years ago. And we had a very, very successful, I didn't really think too much of it, but I put up a Facebook ad, set up a really basic funnel, directing people to a Facebook group, sold $10,000 worth of programs in our very first week that we ever existed. And since then, that business became, 7 years later, that business has become, really, really huge. 70 staff. We won the 2CCC award because of it. Done well over, $25 million. And then it all came crashing down. And we got liquidated earlier this year.
That's awesome. Talk to us about, so obviously getting into that entrepreneur space, a lot of people go from W-2, work for somebody. Where did you kind of go off to your entrepreneur space? When did you kind of jump in with both feet, or what was that transition for you to get into that space?
Yeah. So I suppose I started off, I was a typical entrepreneurial kid. I'd be the kid, I'm in my late 30s. I was selling burnt CDs to other kids, Magic the Gathering cards, trying to, profit off all of that sort of stuff. And I suppose I had a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, but I didn't really have an idea. And I'd spend a lot of time just, thinking about what I was going to do. And, I lost a whole bunch of weight. And then I kind of got into personal training, and I started working for someone for the first time. Before that, by the way, another story, but I was a professional poker player for many years. I did that for
that's really cool.
6 years or so. But I think that's a complete other thing. And yeah, I got into I effectively just got into that, and I was like, how do I turn this into a business? How do I make more money? Because I've always been such a money-orientated person, thinking about how can I make more. And yeah, I just pretty much started working with someone. That didn't last very long. And then I set up my own personal training business inside a big box gym, and brought on about 3 staff.
Nice.
That's great. So tell me a little bit about the experience that you had running that gym versus like doing the online space. What were some of the biggest, hurdles that came with both of those, and then some of the pros and cons, if you will?
I think the biggest thing is, like, we're talking about a physical space as soon as you were doing personal training, and being geographically locked. Like, I'm a traveler of the world. Like, I've done so much travel, it's not funny. I spent the last 2 years traveling nonstop pretty much until I finally kind of settled down now. But I think that, having to show up and be around every single day, be around people, definitely I'm being an introvert. It saps a lot of my energy. And I really love the whole idea of, just being online, working behind the scenes. At the end of the day, I'm an ads guy. I'm a funnels guy. I don't really like necessarily being the person who's the front of a business. I don't like being the person who necessarily talks on camera. I have done it because I need to. But, for me, nothing quite beats being able to work, online, remotely, hidden away.
I get that. That leads into my question. So looking at your business, obviously, to afford you to have the ability to travel, and I get that. That's a freedom you get to have. Obviously, developing a staff, like you said, 70 people, but to not be the face, not be doing the day-to-day, you obviously have to develop that out. One of the kind of the things, hurdles, I see a lot of people who go from making 6 to 8 to 9 figures, kind of where that jump off is bringing the right people on. Bringing 70 people on is that's a good sized company. It's a medium sized company. How did you guys kind of transition, or how much did you take on till you knew you had to start hiring more people and having other people run the business for you?
I think like we had such early success, right? And the early success was we made $10,000 in our first week of operations, and off of that, you kind of have this like, you know, you in one area you've just like shot ahead, but like all the other skills that you have just aren't quite there yet, right? So we're just like, yeah, let's go hire people. So all of a sudden, like, with my business partner, like we hired his mum, we hired one of his friends, we hired one of his clients in the gym. All of a sudden we had 5 staff. And next thing you know, we're traveling the world at the same time, trying to get, our staff to do all these things. I think, we were over in Cambodia at the time. And we kind of like spoke to our accountant and he goes, you guys aren't making any money. In fact, you owe the government like, $30,000. You haven't paid your taxes. And I'm like, oh, we're losing money. So, bringing on staff for us, it was this thing where we did it so irresponsibly just because we wanted to actually, the mindset was we wanted to actually outsource doing all the work in the business, all the hard stuff before we'd actually earned it or knew how to do it.
Yeah. It's interesting how a lot of the scaling hiccups come in the context of like you want a new operational person or somebody to help with some of the fulfillment on the offers you have, but then you don't necessarily have an understanding of where they fit in terms of like the budget and all those other things, and then the taxes and all that stuff. And there's so many different constructs to how business is done in the beginning, and it's just there's so many lessons to learn. So that's wild. What would you say was one of the biggest lessons you took away from that time period in terms of hiring and managing a team and everything?
Yeah, well, when you look at like why the business ultimately ended up closing, it was, there were some things we were very good at. Like, there were times where I questioned my ability, even as a marketer. But like when I, had time to really dissect what the problems were, it was just hiring. And I can't state this enough for anyone that's going from $1 million business up to a 10 million business beyond. It's like the importance of hiring is for me the most important thing you could possibly do. Because if you're constantly hiring B players, people who aren't, aren't effective, can't work without you, require you to micromanage them, you're just creating yourself a prison. And, that's exactly what we did. And then we had friends and family working with the business. And of course, what do we want to do? We wanted to promote our friends and family. Except what happens when you promote someone who is used to being a health and fitness coach, and all of a sudden you're asking them to track metrics of a health and fitness team? It just doesn't make sense. And then that person wanted to have more control. They wanted to be in charge, but they didn't have the skill set. So we ended up with a business of 70 staff where no one was actually an expert or a specialist in the job that they had, because we'd promoted rather than going and finding new talent.
Yeah, I think that's key. I've made that mistake before, hiring VAs and hiring different staff, and I get it. That's just kind of you create yourself a prison. I always say you create yourself a job. It's worse than you just doing it yourself. So let's get back on the marketing side. You've obviously had some success. Like one can't argue that. Now you travel the world. You're in Miami today. Is that where you're living now in Miami? Is that just where you're at today, or?
Yeah, so I have I live in 3 places. So I live in Sydney, Australia, where I'm originally from. I'm in Miami. I met my partner over here, and then we also live in Dubai. So across 3 different parts of the world. I'm very, I suppose you could say, I'm nomadic. I like living in different places. I love the different lifestyles, and 3 very different and unique cities that I love all of them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Dubai. What was the number one thing that kind of drew you into that area?
I find it extremely, extremely motivating. You just look around and you're just surrounded by wealth. And I think like I've always been a person that needs to be around, a bigger circle. Because when I just see every second car is a bloody Lamborghini, and I'm looking out, from my hotel into the water, and there's like all these, $100 million yachts floating up and down the harbor, I'm like, geez, like, you get that feeling of just like being a speck in the ocean in Dubai, which, I don't feel necessarily in other cities. So there's that, and also just the safety. It's one of the few places in the world where you can like roll down the streets wearing, $100,000 watch on your wrist, and no one's going to ever rob you. I think it's like rated like the 3rd safest city in the entire world. And it's just a great feeling to just, it gives you a sense of, I suppose, freedom. And just in general, also I suppose also the quality of living. They have like the newest technology and everywhere, and the best restaurants. There's a lot there. It's my favorite out of the three.
I'm an eater, so I get that. I love international travel in Paris, Ireland. I love good food, so I get what you're saying. I get that. So, um, get back in the business a little bit for marketing for our audience. Like I know, connecting with people. So obviously, create. You start out with us. You were talking to us before the interview. How can you help us and add value? That's one of our core beliefs. We try to help and add value to people, and obviously by doing that, it lends itself to be reciprocated. So when you started out, like what were the ways you guys gave value or had a lot of value? Obviously, you don't do a big business overnight for not giving away value or helping people. So, what did you guys kind of do to spark that? And what's kind of sustained your business with the value you've given to folks?
So I suppose like everything, if I were to go back to when we started the health and fitness business, and it really just came down to me giving information away for free. As I said, like I really hate being on camera. I went on there and, I have hypothyroidism, which, is effectively a hormonal imbalance that makes it extremely hard to lose weight for anyone who doesn't understand that. And being a personal trainer, I was in a very unique situation to be able to help people with the problem that I had myself. So that's, why our business was so successful, because we went super, super niche in the beginning. Now, in terms of like adding value, it was just like I just showed up on social media every single day. I remember I had a business mentor at the time, and he's like, I know none of you guys are going to do this, but the person who does do this is going to make $1 million. I was like, I'm doing that challenge. And he said, you've got to record a video every single day and put it on social media for 6 months. And I did it, and I made $1 million. So he told the truth. But that's it. It's just like giving away for free, right? And then, on top of that, it's just like, when you have a great strategy like that, it just is the 1-2 hook with the ads. And for me, like all my businesses have made money. I'm real direct response. So all of my businesses have made money mostly through just having really, really, successful ad campaigns.
That's awesome. So if I understand correctly, it sounds like the way that you kind of grew your business was you used ads as the way to kind of get discovered and show up in front of people. But then from there, you were able to nurture them through the content and follow-up sequences that you provided. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So, originally it was me. Like, they always say that people have to spend, 7 hours absorbing your content before they're willing to buy off you. I think that a lot of the time, if anything, to be completely honest, we had an over-reliance on being too direct with our ads. I think that, we were capable of getting people to our landing page and converting them on a sales call within like, literally having watched 30 minutes of our stuff and getting them on the phone and selling them. So, we did that, by the end of the business, and it's probably one of the things that really hurt us, but we had an over-reliance on using celebrities. So, we had, for example, the guy who was the biggest loser in Australia, like the biggest loser coach, who was the front of our brand. And we also had one of Australia's most famous news reporters at the front of our brand. Gave us very little flexibility because we didn't have an attractive character to go talk to everybody. But what it did do was it gave us a lot of status. So we'd be able to send people through this funnel. And it was just like, 5-to-1 return on investment while that lasted, and we'd bring people back in. But I think that, my piece of advice, like I say this to all, like, and I haven't actually heard that many people talk about this the way that I'm about to talk about it. But I think that my piece of advice to everybody who's trying to sell something is just having an absolutely 10 out of 10 incredible landing page. Like that's been the basis. Like, I've launched multiple businesses. I think I'm, in business number 5 at the moment. And in all of those businesses, we have that landing page. And a lot of the time, if you've got something really specific, I know ChatGPT does everything these days, but like even today, I still pay copywriters because copywriters, are going to beat out what ChatGPT can do when you've got something really, really specific, So it's about, for me, it's just like always being able to direct people to that page where they've got exact information. They have all the buying information they can possibly need that just improves your sales process. And that's it. It's just like anyone who starts a business, it's just like spend all your time in the first place just making sure that point of contact where they get to learn about your business is perfect. Test.
Awesome. So look at your discover and nurture, obviously how you're connecting with people and growing. you're saying you're kind of you talked to us off camera about liquidating your business. You're kind of getting into a new business. So kind of talk about the transition, what that looks like. Obviously, you've made some success. Have you kind of got bored with it, or are you kind of looking for something new or better? Is this a better opportunity? Kind of where are you heading into now in the future, Andrew?
Yeah, like no, that business closed because we ran it poorly, right? It came down to us making a lot of mistakes. And it was really like my first real online business. And it came down to the fact, like, it's funny, like, we're here talking to Comma Club Award stuff, but like, possibly the 2CCC award came to the business's detriment, if being completely honest. And the reason
Yeah.
is that we just drove so hard for revenue, because you have this big thing in front of you. You have like this $25 million award. You envision yourself up on stage, right? And, being so deeply embedded within the ClickFunnels community, you have this goal. And, the crazy thing is that even came at the expense of some of our profit, right? So it's a very interesting scenario where, like, we effectively just chased revenue for such a long period of time, and our profit margins just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. We didn't have the right staff in place. The economy in Australia, where we ran most of our business, just really has suffered over the last few years. So we're just finding that, when you're selling a program for 5K a pop, people just aren't buying it the same way that they used to. And then our margins dropped. We were already sort of like hitting like a 4-to-1, then it became a 3-to-1, and all of a sudden, it got to the business closed so quickly, because it was like we just lost like 200 grand in 2 weeks, and we're like, shit, like, are we going to put more money back in? And this is after shuffling back in $1 million plus, and we're just like, I think that's it. I don't think we can do this anymore. And then that came to the point where it's like, well, what's next?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question to ask is, so what is next? What are you currently going into, and what does that opportunity look like?
Well, it's crazy. Like, we go from a business that, in its best year was doing over, $10 million in revenue, and where, we have all these skills. And one of the things that happened in that last final sort of like year and a half stint, we were getting our ass kicked. Like, we had to chuck $1 million plus back into the business, right? And when you get your ass kicked for so long, it makes you an incredible operator. Incredible, because we had to, like, we weren't able to fix things in terms of, like, optimize the marketing as much as we'd like. So we had to find all the little gaps everywhere else. So it's like, how can we get more efficiency out of this part of the business? How can we put the prices up, but ensure that, the quality of the program is going up at the same time with less staff, and we really got really good at that. So by the time we'd come to closing that business down and launch the new business, so, there's 2 things I'm working at the moment. I'm going to talk to you about She Sells. So She Sells is a program where we teach women how to become remote closers, right? So we're effectively teaching them how to live a lifestyle of geographical location and time freedom, and do that from selling from anywhere in the world. And that business, we had all of the moving bits. Like, for me, I'm marketing and ads. My main business partner in the first business, he's in the second business as well, but he was really into sales. But then what we really lacked, as I discussed before, was the third ingredient, which was someone who was really obsessed with the program, and someone who was the attractive character, right? And they were the missing links. So what we did was we actually brought on our best ever performing sales woman from the last business, and we just went into partnership with her. And she is absolute gun. The ultimate, like, when you think of an attractive character and you put someone on camera and you see them talk and they just light up the screen, that's her. And we're just like, we found the third person that we needed in a business to make things tick. And, we're 4 months deep in that business now. And in 4 months, we're in our, in this 4th month, there's a possibility. I mean, where are we at the moment? We're midway through October. We'll see. There's a possibility we'll out-profit any month that we ever had in the health and fitness business.
That's awesome. And is that you? Are you referring to Brooke? I follow her online. Are
Yeah.
you referring to Brooke? She is a great attractive character. That's why I just saw your business and what you guys are doing. Knew you were connected. And that's too funny that you bring her up. So she's great. I think your niche market there. Tell me if I'm wrong. Was women and sales with women. And she really speaks to that, in a huge way with her family being involved on their Instagram account. I think that's a gold mine you guys are sitting on there for sure. And I think women do a much better job in sales than guys do, to be honest with you. So
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I think that when it comes, like, we saw that in health and fitness, and, when you have a business as big as ours, and, there's some weeks we pump over 100 sales, you just start to see the numbers, and, 30, 40, 50, I have no idea how many salespeople we went through during that time. But it's just like, consistently our very best performers were women, particularly when it was selling to women. So, and then that's a part of it as well. It's just like, we know, particularly within the ClickFunnels community, that there are so many people who want women closers, particularly when they're selling in a very emotion based product. So that's kind of the second part of the business, is that, people need quality closers. And the other thing about it is, when we're looking for, closers, a lot of the time people fall into sales, but they're not necessarily that good at it. When you come through and you work with us, we find people who have the right characteristics, right? And the characteristics of a salesperson are far, far more important, because if you don't have the right characteristics, at some point in time you hit a ceiling and you can't go beyond that ceiling. Whereas when you're finding people who constantly have, really good characteristics, and, they've got world-class, fantastic training, that's what makes a great salesperson.
yeah,
That's awesome. So you touched on the great salesperson, and I'm also interested because it sounds like part of your narrative has also been expanding on finding the different attractive characters. So what qualities could you say that if you're an individual who maybe is not the one who wants to be behind the camera, but wants to work with somebody because you want a face to the business, what qualities would you say you should look for in that attractive character?
I think I think the thing is, you see someone on camera, and for me, I just watch them and I just know straight away. It's like, how engaging are they? Are they like talking to the camera? Are they animated? Do they get excited? Do you want to watch it? I think it was Russell Brunson who said this in one of his seminars, but there's no such thing as videos that are too long, just too boring, right? So it's about finding someone who is just really, really engaging, interesting. People want to listen to them, right? It's like, if they've already got a basis of followers, fantastic. And I think that it's all about, when you're finding, someone to work with, because a lot of people want a business partner that they can do this with. It's just about finding someone who has opposing strengths to you. So, for example, I'm the guy who wants to focus on making a shit ton of money. I want to sit behind my computer. I want to run ads. I want to look at my spreadsheets and numbers and not talk to anybody. And Brooke's the person who wants to go around talking to everybody, having fun, smiling, making sure that all of our clients are getting results, making sure that, everything, the program's being sold. So, I'm in a great position. We've got the other business partner, Andrew, who's really focused on the HR side and the sales sort of side of things. But, it's just like, there's a perfect combination there. And, choosing your business partners, like choosing your wife or your husband. Once you're with that person, it's a long-term relationship. So you better, it's funny, like, people get married, like, after, like, some people get married after 10 years, but some people will pick a business partner in a click of a finger, right? It doesn't really make much sense when you, like, think of it like that, because that's a person that you're going to be in bed with effectively for a very long period of time. So, you've got to make sure that if there's a missing link there, there'll be something missing from your business. So you've just got to be very, very thoughtful of, thinking, what is the missing link and how are we going to solve that problem before you go into business?
Yeah, I like that. I like how you brought up partnerships. I mean, that's what John and I are working on, partnering together, have another partner in real estate. I think it is critical. And something you mentioned is, you're choosing to go along with them or you're getting married. I call it run the race. You're doing it with them. And if they aren't running the race like you're running the race, if you're pulling all the steam or if they're pulling all the steam, that's a big deal. So besides your partner, what's somebody who's helped you in business, or is it your partner who's really kind of got you to the next level of where you would be if you didn't have them kind of with you?
So like most people, like, I've just had constant mentorship. I can't even tell you how much money I've spent on mentorship. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it like life changing. So, I had one business mentor who we worked with for like 6.5 years, consistently. There's not many people who can say that they work with someone for 6.5 years, right? And for me, it's always just been about surrounding myself with the right people. Like, sure, my business partners have been absolutely fantastic. They've always pushed us and pushed me and driven me to the next level. We've had a shit ton of fun doing it all together. Like that's a big thing for me as well. I just have fun with business. I like working with people that I like. And I suppose, yeah, it's always finding things. And, even, in the ClickFunnels community, being involved in the inner circle and being around a whole bunch of ballers who are making, a whole heap of money as well.
Yeah, definitely the inner circle. I got to go hang out in Vegas this past month and go be a part of the FHL International where they had the inner circle meeting and hang out with a bunch of people. And I mean, the energy in that room is just something else. It's very fantastic to say the very least. A lot of people who are doing a lot of great things and providing a lot of energy. So I'm actually curious to take things back to one of the previous comments that you had mentioned about one of the most key successful moments in a business is like the landing page. So I don't know if you could break down kind of some of those elements and metrics behind what makes a good landing page versus what would make a bad landing page.
I think that obviously whenever someone hits a landing page, it's going to be completely different for every single niche, every single subject. And you've just got to really understand who your audience is, and also the social media platform that you're bringing people off. If you're bringing people off of, YouTube, they're going to have a much longer time horizon to pay attention to your content because they're used to consuming long form content. Whereas if you take someone off TikTok, they're going to have a brain like a gnat because they're used to watching like 3-second videos and they're not going to be able to pay attention to anything long form, right? They're going to want like really quick and short, right? So I think that's probably one of the most important things, understanding where people are coming from. Most of, my marketing career, I've always just focused mostly on Facebook and Instagram, primarily just because I've got the highest ROI off of those. And, when people arrive at a landing page, it's just like, it's test, right? And I think most people, like what they do is they're lazy. They'll try one landing page, they'll put it up, it's worked or it didn't work. And I just want to explain the difference in my mind, what I do compared to what other people do. And all of this applies for ads as well. It's exactly the same. Because you're just like, okay, well, this is getting this conversion percentage at the moment. It's getting 10%. But, I think you'll be surprised at how little one tiny little tweak could make to a headline that ends up with you getting an extra 5%. And you're like, how did that even happen? That doesn't even make sense. I changed one word. I said like at instead of the, and the numbers the numbers changed, right? So it's when you're a marketer and you're coming into this world, what you're committing to is a lifetime of never ending testing. And it's just over and over. So, what works in a landing page, it comes down to, the video. Like a lot of people, they'll put a landing page video up, they'll test all of their ad videos and see which one works. But why wouldn't you test your landing page video? Chuck it into Facebook ads, set up a link click ad, set it to, $30 worth and just find out, against your other landing pages, which ones watch the most, right? If you're sending people from Instagram there, test the landing page, the Instagram landing page on Instagram ads. Because, if you're going through TikTok, do the test on TikTok ads on the VSL, right? Just makes sense. And, then when it comes to, long form, short form, again, like I can't really tell you exactly how it is. And, the truth of it is like writing copy is like the bane of my existence. I pay copywriters to do everything for me, right? So, I can't get into the technicals of that. And then, for the rest of it, I use ChatGPT, right, for a lot of it these days. But even then, as I said, if I'm not an expert, like, the business has money, why wouldn't I just pay a copywriter? They're going to use ChatGPT. Do I care? No. Are they going to give me something that returns, a better result? Like if I have a landing page that converts at 20%, then I get a copywriter who makes it convert at 25%. I made 20, my business is doing 20% extra total overall, just because we got an extra, 20% opt-ins, right? So, that's kind of like, for me, like the technicals I have to, I outsource most of it. So that's where I'm at.
Looking at your business, everybody, one of my favorite things is to see where people are really good at, what things they're really good at, and hire or partner with people who aren't good at. What's kind of your superpowers, your one or two unique abilities? I'm a big believer in that. I think everybody has certain skills they're really good at and certain skills they don't enjoy doing, or they procrastinate or sub out. What's kind of one or two of your things that you and your partner or you guys are good at in business to differentiate yourselves?
I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. Um, I can just get lost for hours. I'll just be staring at my tracking sheets and numbers. And I think, when you look at what actually makes up the characteristics of someone who's really good at Facebook ads, it's twofold. It's like analysis of data, right? And then it's also the creative side. And I suppose that's probably the other superpower that I have, is just to think creatively. It's not necessarily the copy creativity, but it's like, you know, structure, design, funnel, ideas, offers, which is kind of like more so, not the nitty gritty, like the bigger picture sort of stuff. But yeah, you can put me in front of numbers anyways, even other people's business numbers, and I'll just stare at them. I just time will kind of like fly. It's how when I travel all the time, it's how I pass all my time. I just put numbers up there, and I'll just 5 hours later, and I'm landed wherever I need to be.
That's awesome. I'd say I'm very much the same way. Like, I can remember as a child, I literally had this, they called it a number scroll. And like the idea was you would sit here and you would literally just write numbers on it and count as high as you could. And I did stuff like that ever since I was a kid. And then it started in the stock market and all that other stuff. So I can totally nerd out about numbers with you and everything. It's great. With that said, like, what do you think that Superpower has been able to do for you in your business? Like, what are some of the things that has enabled you to really excel in compared to that of, other businesses, if you will?
Yeah. Look, I think that a lot of people have limiting beliefs as to how far they can go, right? And what we're talking about here is we're talking about emotional triggers that block people from actually ever being able to scale. They believe that they're worth a business that makes $1 million a year, which might profit them 300 grand a year, and they get stuck. They get stuck at that point and they never actually progress. And the problem is emotion is the thing that really just messes us up here, because, we think. So when you can take things 100%, 1000% logical when it comes to the numbers of your business, and you know exactly what those numbers are, you can overcome anything emotionally that's going on. So, when I look at our businesses, I'm like, okay, if we turn up the ads to this amount of money and we continue getting this return, we're going to make X amount of dollars. And then I just do it. I suppose that when you truly know your numbers, you understand how to gamble profitably. Most people, they think of gambling and they go, run, I can't gamble, no. But business is about, I can't stress this enough. It's like, I have a gambling background. We mentioned that at the start. I played poker, but it's, that's probably another superpower I have, because, I'm totally desensitized to money. I just don't even, money just isn't even real to me. Right. So, when I go and drop, $50,000 on ads in a week in the health and fitness business on one of our biggest weeks, I just haven't even thought about that money. It's not real. And then I go, gee, I wish I could have spent 100. And I'm like, I wish I could have spent 200. And my attitude is I'm the person who's just spend. And I'm very lucky that I've got a business partner who balances me out. And it's like, hey, hold up, Andrew. We sure we want to do that. But, I think it's just like putting your head down and, you're constantly just making correct decisions, right?
Yeah. Look, back about the spending, you really hit on a topic I want to talk about. And this is something I'm a real big believer on is, like you said, generating revenue in your past business. So you guys were generating revenue, much to your dismay, you were pumping money back into business. I'm not a big believer of, plowing. People say, well, plowing the profits back into business. And they're really not profits is how I look at it. John and I have talked about this a lot. I have a real estate business. I'm making tons of money per month. We're also spending it per month. And it really was hit me home that kind of like your business is a wake-up call. Hey, I got into business to make money, not just to break even. And I had to change totally what we were doing and how we were doing things. And we did start liquidating some things, selling them to pay down debt. But I think most people are really focused on that revenue portion, which I think is important to scale. And I really believe you should have revenue. You should be wanting to grow or scale. But to the detriment of your profits, I don't think that's the way to go. I'm just really interested. You talk about scaling. You talked about plowing money in the business, but you also see an ROI on that. So how are you looking at that? Like you say, you just don't see money, you don't think about money, but I think you're looking at the ROI on that, and you're not afraid to put more, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably not afraid to put more money or throw more money at it if you know it's going to incrementally increase that ROI as you go. Is that kind of your thought process, or how are you guys looking at that?
Yeah, like in general in the businesses that I've run, I set myself a target of like 5 to 1, as an ROI, because at 5 to 1, and this is the thing, it's like with the health and fitness business, like we were lucky, we weren't profiting at all. Like, we saw it dwindle. It was like, hey, we had 20% margins, we were making money, but then we were still making the same amount of money when the business had doubled, and we're like 10% margins, right? Now we've got a business that's like 70% profit margins, right? So we've got no problems at all because we were able to fix that, right? That was that we built the business from the ground up. Instead of there being one-to-one nutritional coaching, now everything's group, and fulfillment is is largely information group. So there's virtually very, very little fulfillment cost in the program, right? In terms of like the offer and the marketing, it's not a saturated space. No one's really doing, the coaching. So all of a sudden, coaching women how to become salespeople. So all of a sudden, we're spending money and we're getting very, very cheap leads. And for me, like I think at the moment our return is about 13 to 1, dollar for dollar. But anything over 5 to 1, I'm just like push spend as much money as I can, and that's kind of my KPI. And at the moment, it's like, okay, well, how much money can we spend without breaking the business? And again, I'm probably the person who's just going to keep on trying to spend, and then I'm going to go complain to my sales division. Where are all our salespeople? Can you see how many leads we've got? And then, we have a good laugh about it. Everyone knows that I like to push the boundaries, and I think that's part of it, just having fun with business.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most exciting things. It's like, I think the best quote that I ever heard for running ads successfully was the idea of like having a license to print money effectively. It was like, you can just sit there and just keep spending, like you said, as much as you can. So I'm kind of curious to know, what is the biggest amount that you've spent on a like monthly, or not monthly, but daily ad budget?
2000, I think we would have spent about 15K in a day. Yeah, 15K.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like it just adapted. It just was based on how many sales spots. Like there were days with the health and fitness business where I just go, okay, we have 10 salespeople. I'm just going to fill them up. And, like I used to do, silly things. Like I just turn the ads up on that night and be like, oh, we're not full. I need to get everybody full. Right. So, like there's plenty, I think that's the thing. It's like a lot of people won't tell you how many mistakes they've made along the way when it comes to, running business and so forth. But, I feel that like because of the amount of mistakes that I made in that first business, because of how many errors I've made and how much, I've chased revenue over the years, it's resulted in actually being able to make very, very clear decisions now when it comes to round 2.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of my sayings is mistakes problems are essential to progress. And I think if you're moving forward, you're going to have persistence, you're going to have problems, just are. And it's really about overcoming those problems is how you get to the next level. I totally believe in. It's not like you said, emotional trigger. A lot of people they hit that resistance, that emotional trigger, and they just start backing down. And John and I talk to people all the time. They just have that fear. Like you said, just understanding the ROI and just applying that math and those principles, and it really becomes to a logical standpoint. You know what your ROI is going to be. You're going to be a higher sales standpoint. I totally agree with that. And one of the things I just found funny was just you talking about the numbers. And I have an accountant partner, friend of mine. He loves to talk numbers. He's super conservative. I'm the opposite of numbers, super, aggressive. And he's from the Caribbean, so his accent comes in. He's like, "Oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that." Which I understand. You need somebody to be the brake sometimes, but at the same time, like, let's go. If we invest more money, we'll make more money, And I think he sees it as you invest more money or spend more money, you're going to have a higher tax situation, which is part of the thing. I mean, obviously, as you make money, you're taxed higher, expenses go up, employees, overhead, all those things. That's part of it. But like you were saying, really, the benefit of having good people and coaching. That's one of the things I want to ask you. Like, what has kind of been your secret sauce with being able to help other people Because I keyed in, you said, how can I help add value to you guys? How are you helping add other value to people? Has that helped your business, Andrew?
Yeah. What you were saying before, I think was something that's really relevant is you sometimes just got to let people touch the stove and get their hand burnt, right? Like it doesn't matter how much you say to someone or anything or how much value you give. Sometimes people just need to burn the hand, right? Because everyone, like information is free in this era of AI and everyone has all the information, but it's also about what you're able to do with that information. And, in terms of value that I give and help with other people, it's kind of like I have a lot of people, a lot of friends. My partner, she has a business, and I help her. People come to me, and I used to do consulting at one stage, but I just got over it. I didn't really enjoy it, and we were making too much money at the time in health and fitness to just even to be teaching people all of our secrets. Right, just didn't make sense. And I think part of when I give value to people, it's just about helping them, go through and break down how they're going to approach business. Having been through, as much, as many ups and downs as I've been through with business, like going all the way up, $10 million a year business, all the way down, liquidation, letting go of 70 staff. It's like, there's a lot there. And I think it's just like giving people, telling people the stories and the lessons in business that I've learned myself.
Yeah, that's very powerful, that history that you have there and those experiences. One of the words you just used reminded me of a conversation I had last night on a coaching call that I was running, and the big theme that we talked about was like letting go of things, right? And so it is one. If you've read the book Good to Great, the big thing that they talk about being the differentiator of what's holding you back from getting to a great spot is that you still have good things going on and you need to let go of the good things in order to make room for the great things. So, what advice do you have to those people who are watching that are in a spot where maybe they're considering about letting go of the opportunity that they're currently involved in, and what can you say to them in terms of advice of making that decision effectively, if that makes sense?
I think it's, again, I think that the most important skill in business is always going to be knowing your numbers. Obviously, I'm super biased because I'm a numbers guy, but when you can truly break it down and work it out and be impartial to it, right? That's when you're going to be able to make those decisions really well. You kind of, a lot of the time, you can go get your hand burnt, but perhaps you don't want to get your hand burnt. Perhaps you want a coach who's actually going to be able to help you through this, because the biggest thing that stops people from progressing through to the next level is always going to be their mindset, right? So you've got to have the combination of having the guts, to go and try something new, right? And also having someone push you in the right direction so you make as few mistakes as you possibly can. So if you're the sort of person who is thinking about getting started, thinking about taking the next step, thinking about making the decision, it's getting someone to help you and just like sometimes just putting your head down and just going for it. Because based on the information that you have, the logical information, the numbers.
I think that's real. The numbers are real important. I do believe that. I do think, which it makes sense, logical standpoint. But looking at family and friends as you were kind of coming up in your businesses, it was taking off. I know that just like my family, you probably got a lot of resistance, and I can't have those conversations talking about millions of dollars in real estate, and somebody owns a house that's several $100,000. They have no idea. How do you have some of those conversations, or do you even have that conversations with your family and friends about your business and finances, or how are you dealing with that?
Yeah. It's my friend group. If you were to look at who I was probably 12 years ago compared to who I am today, like it's a complete 180. Like pretty much all my friends are in business now. I find that as you get deeper and deeper in business, you just need more stimulation. It's like, the conversations that you need to have. Like I used to be obsessed with like sport, like English Premier League. And, that just became less and less stimulating. And I just found myself just not caring as much anymore because I'm just like so engrossed and I just love the world of business. So for starters, I think I find myself just moving away from those conversations naturally. And the second thing, when it comes to family, I suppose like, I've got a great family. They love hearing, and they really cheer for my success. And yeah, I'll often share it. My dad's been in business for a very long period of time, so we share that together. And I think that, in terms of, for me, I'm always been someone who just like, I'm not really phased by what other people say or think or do. I'm always on my own mission. I'm always the person who wants to be unique, stand out, be a little bit different to everybody else. So I kind of get a smile on my face when I know I'm different. I know that that's something that people definitely, I like being like, the unicorn, the weirdo. I know some people definitely struggle with, what other people think of them, but it's also the thing that's going to hold you back if that's the case. Like, I met my girlfriend and I wouldn't have met her if I hadn't done this, but I just walked up to her on the street and said hello. And now we're together, long-term relationship, one day we'll probably get married. And it's sometimes like, again, you've just got to, like I said it before, you put your head down and, take the risk, because if you don't take the risk, you don't get the reward.
Yeah, that's so true. And a lot of people end up struggling with that today. I find it fascinating how much resistance there is for people to step out of their comfort zone. And it's just, there's so many options in their environment to take the easy route, and it prevents them from ever deciding to do the uncomfortable things. What advice would you have in terms of like catering your environment to foster the decision making process of actually taking the harder road, if you will?
That's a good question. I suppose like it comes down to knowing your why. Like, why are you operating? What do you want? And how badly do you want that? And what are you willing to do to have that thing? And, when you really break it down, it's like you want that thing so, so bad, but you probably haven't even gone there in your own head as to what it's going to take to accomplish it. And it's just a completely illogical thing to be like, hey, I want this, or even worse in our day and age, I deserve this. When in fact, like, you've got to break down like what the cost of getting that thing is, because there's always going to be a cost, always a cost. And you might not like that cost and you may not decide to take it. But when you view it that way, you get to make the choice. Am I going to face my fears and do the thing that I'm scared of, or I don't want to, in chance of getting this, or am I just going to live and be average? And, when you make the decision and the commitment to yourself that, hey, for me, the word that I use is I'm going to make my life extraordinary, because I want to live an extraordinary life that, other people talk about my life because they go, wow, that was amazing. And if I've had, at the end of my days, if I look back at my life and I'm like, I had a lot of fun, I achieved my goals, satisfaction, I've had the love of my life by my side, then everything is good.
I love that. I love that you talk about that's one of my whys is, to be able to love others, to be able to have, like you said, to be a leader, to make more other people leaders. What pushes your buttons now in business in particular? I know you talk about extraordinary and satisfying your goals. What's really, because you seem like the kind of guy where you get restless and the norm wouldn't be something you're excited about. So what's really pushing your buttons, or what's pushing your company's buttons right now? What are you guys shooting for?
Yeah, so I think after the liquidation of the business, like, definitely took a financial burden upon me. So at the moment, right now, it's just like, I just want money. It's kind of like, I went through this period of time where, I had everything that I could possibly have ever needed in life. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, I was like, I got to the point where I was just 100% completely, I never had to work again if I didn't want. And now I'm back. I've actually come back from that. Right. And I'm like back in the thing of like, hey, I don't have like, 100% financial freedom like I used to. And, it's really funny. I always said, like, going from those two phases, I've always said, like, I'd like to actually lose everything. And I said that to my friends. I said, I'd like to lose everything. And, everyone's like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. But then, it's not losing everything, but it's like to like, when you think about it, to lose financial, complete financial stability and freedom, to lose that, it's like, I lost that. And then now I get to make it back. But the fun thing is, it's like, when you actually look at it, like, it's like, for me, I just love the journey. It's just so much fun. It's like, once you hit that certain point, the most fun you ever have in business is when you're starting up and you're first making your money and you're seeing money come in, money that you've never seen before. And you're like, wow, I can create a lifestyle for myself, my family, those around me, and you start dreaming, and I'm kind of in like, I get to feel that again right now because I'm working towards something, the same thing, and I get to go at it twice. So, you know, that's once you hit that kind of like that tangible point, it's like going beyond that there's a diminishing return in the enjoyment that you get beyond that point, in my opinion. Right. And of course, I've never gone beyond that. So I'm talking a load of crap because I've never actually been beyond the point of like having complete financial freedom. But I, I feel like that would probably be the point where you're like, oh, what else do you need? Right. So yeah, no, I'm very, very excited. Like, and as I said, I'm just like really, really enjoying business right now. For me, it's not, I love that our business is helping women with sales, and we're changing people's lives and so forth. I love we've got a good product, but at the end of the day, like I leave that up to Brooke, because Brooke's fantastic, right? She does that job, and for me, it's like I'm a true business owner in that I want to look at the numbers, I want to see us make money, I want to grow something, right? So that's me.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And I resonate with that comment that you make about being able to enjoy the experience again of like the journey, right? Because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And like we only get to experience that in most cases once in a lifetime, right? Like, and then for the few of us who actually get that experience more than once, it's like playing your favorite video game over again or something like that,
Yeah.
right? For the first time. It's just so much fun. So what advice would you give to somebody who maybe is in a position where they are on the decline, but they have the opportunity to turn it around in a new opportunity? Like, what would you say as words of encouragement for them to, persevere in that capacity?
Okay. When we lost the business, it could have been looked at as this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I could have looked at it that way. And, in that moment, I never felt like that, really. I was just like, as I said, I'm a sicko. I kind of like wanted to lose it just so I could make it back again, right? I wasn't, impacted. Like, obviously, there are a lot of people around me. I think the hardest hit was, people losing their jobs who were working for me, and they were our friends. That was the hard thing. But from a personal standpoint, the money side of things, business, it wasn't that. It was something else. So, in terms of what we're doing, like the hardest thing. What was the question? Sorry, I just got off track.
Yeah, no worries at all. I was basically asking, what words of encouragement would you give to somebody who is on the decline in their business and they have the opportunity to
Yeah,
swing things back in the right direction?
of course, of course. So it's just like in that moment, you could have had so much pain, but like hindsight does wonders, because I look back at that and I go, that was a gift. It was a gift because now I got to get into this other business that has so much more potential. So you could argue I got lucky. I got lucky that the business crashed because it opened up the opportunity. So I'm not the most qualified person in the world to be saying to somebody, hey, look at, sum everything up, look at the opportunities, move on to something else, because I wasn't able to do that. I should have done that years ago. Right. But, my hindsight is I wish I did. And it's like, sometimes you have to be able to make quick decisions in business. And, a lot of people hesitate and they take years. I took years. But again, it's like, it's understanding, knowing your numbers. And for me, that was an emotional thing that let me down. I needed to be able to think more clearly. But when you've been running something and you've got so much commitment to a business, it's like, I've been doing this for like 7 years. It's very, very hard to let go. Very, very hard to let go. Now, if you're, for example, wanting, you've got a job and you want to start your business and you're thinking, gee, I need to let go of this. It's like the other thing you can do is just put yourself where you've got enough money to cover, a period of time. It's like if you're really worried and you can't get over that, get a year's worth of income in your bank and just play. You're secure, you're safe. Doesn't matter. What do you need to live off for a year? And then just go from there. Yeah.
I think most people never experience. I think part of it is, we have such fears and we're held back by so many fears. And a lot of people are. They'll just never get to that jumping off point. Like you said, you just have people, that downward climb like John talks about, but most people will never recover from that. They just won't. But I think, like you said, just being different, being a contrarian, that understanding, the impact you can make and being a better business. You left one opportunity to go to another opportunity. I think that to me is exciting. That's where life is. I think a lot of people, everyone's going to die, but not everybody has a chance to live. I believe they just keep themselves so packed down. So I love what you're saying is, hey, you didn't call. You're not calling. Hey, I've never used the word failure in any of this. Today, you talked about your business and not being successful, but you never used the word failure. You're like, I learned, and these things have been great. Now I get to apply them again. And I think that's really your mindset. Is just, to me, it's exactly what's going to make you successful, because you don't see it as a failure. You just see it as an opportunity. And but you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail, but you don't have failure in your life. So I really love that. Just your attitude is awesome, Andrew. I appreciate that about you. And so just talking to folks in our group who are kind of growing or have some success or are struggling right now because of the economy. What would be, like I said, John kind of said, what's some words of advice, but what are you doing now that you would tell others to do based on your coaching and the experience you've had? What are you doing now that basically has all these skill sets you use and now you get a chance to apply? What are you doing now? Or what are you applying that you wish you would have done years ago?
That's a good question. I think the staffing thing is really powerful. And I mean, that's not really getting started with a business, but I will say that again, because anyone who's looking at bringing on staff, don't settle. Just make sure you pick someone, get an A player. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It's the most expensive thing that you could possibly do in a business. I think that, in terms of getting started, the other thing that we talked about was just getting yourself a really, really, really good landing page, because that's the one thing that convert people. As I said, they always talk about the 7-hour period, but you can get someone to a landing page. And if the landing page is that good that they're desperate to buy off you after being to that page, that's money. That's money. And, I think that just really understanding, again, no matter where it is, no matter where your numbers are, it could just be starting up with a spreadsheet that's just super basic. That's even if it's if you're not doing this already, it's how much money you spent on your business and how much money, you've gotten from your business, just anything. Just start somewhere and then just get more and more advanced. But, you can't make good decisions with business when you're using your heart, when you're thinking emotionally. You have to be able to make a logical decision, because emotions are always going to lead you down a terrible, terrible path, because, we're humans, we feel pain, and that pain, it's just the example is my other project in crypto. It's people in crypto are crazy, right? They'll see the market just suddenly go down 5%, and they're sell, 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 sell. And, but they don't realize that if they were just to wait 10 years, that you were to look at crypto 10 years ago, if they just held the whole way, they would have 100 plus X, right? So it's just that's the ultimate example that you can always take it back to, that when people think emotionally, with trading crypto, it's okay, you've got to be able to go back there, and you've got to just be able to think logically and break things down without, so if you ever feel yourself going up and down or getting emotional or restless, give yourself a day, think about it. Nothing's going to change. You don't need to make a fast decision.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I have a little over 10 years experience trading in stock market and a little bit of crypto from time to time. And it's those days where you're getting restless, it's best to just put your phone down or put your laptop away and walk away, and then, come back the next day, like you said. So before we got you on the podcast, we were actually talking in the DMs about a new thing that you're developing currently for the crypto space when it comes to high ticket acquisition and stuff. If you wouldn't mind sharing about that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's kind of like my little side hustle on the side. Obviously, She Sells is the big one, but we've got, I don't know if you can see that, but this is my coin. It's called Bun. And Bun for me is just a whole lot of fun. It's a CTO community managed coin, and I got together with a bunch of friends and we took over a coin, and we didn't really expect it to go anywhere. And now it's just gotten really big. And I kind of just thought to myself, no one is using traditional marketing in the crypto space, right? A lot of the time you're dealing with people who go in there and they're buying a freaking a picture, like a cartoon. They literally look at a cartoon and they buy the cartoon because it has like a cool narrative. It's got a whole bunch of images. I'm like, well, what about if I can, bring my business experience, my marketing experience to the world of crypto? And I was like, what if a coin could be run like a business? And that's what we're working through at the moment. So it just kind of became this place where I'm like, is it possible to make more money with a crypto coin than it is in business? And that's to be determined, right? That's to be determined. But we've already done 100x from where we're at. So the thing's gone pretty crazy. It's a lot of fun. And then it's kind of developed to being like, we can make this a personal development platform. So what if we were to completely change the way that people did business in the high ticket space, where instead of buying a high ticket program, people could then come and hold a crypto coin that then goes up in value, where we provide them with, the resources and so forth that you'd get in a high ticket program. You have coaches who require a certain amount of coin that they'd need to hold to become a coach. Then you have members, and then, effectively we have like a self-sustainable high ticket coaching program. Now there's a lot of things that need to be mapped out, but, most crypto coins, particularly in, particularly Solana space, in the meme space, are thinking about like one day away, like how can I make all this money? But we're taking like a long-term approach. Like how do you put a 10-year plan, on a crypto coin? So, for us, it's very much thinking like completely outside the square, doing something completely new. And we're just super excited to, see what we can do. But yeah, you're welcome to come look it up. You saw there before us, like Bun, the ticker there. You can go have a look and look it up. But yeah, we're just having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, definitely will. That's really cool.
That's awesome. Well, Andrew, I really appreciate your time today. I mean, I've learned a ton personally. I got 2 pages of notes you and I talking. So I picked up a lot of the golden nuggets, I call them, from you. And I really appreciate the value that you provided today. And if you just let people know, what's the easiest way to reach out to you, learn more about what you guys are doing, or she sells, or your crypto? What's the easiest way for folks to contact you?
Yeah, so the easiest way, we've got a page, which is just shesells.online. And then you can also go there and you'll find Brooke, and the best person probably is follow Brooke. If you want, there's a few things there. If you want salespeople, we've also got shesellsrecruits.com, where you can actually get access to all the information about that. Also, just reach out to me on Instagram. I can redirect you in the right situation. So it's just at Andrew Gaussen on Instagram, with the easiest way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Andrew. This has been an absolute blast, and I look forward to seeing what happens with that coin. That's such a unique and cool project you got going on there.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be checking it out.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, guys.